Welcome to Cultimatum, the podcast uncovering the dark realities of cults and human trafficking. I'm your host, Anonymous Andrew, and each week we dive deep into the manipulation, control, and courageous escapes that define these worlds.
And I'm Melody, Andrew's co-host. Having experienced the depth of a cult firsthand, specifically the House of Yahweh, I am here as an advocate for fellow survivors.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests are their own and do not reflect the official policy or position of Cultimatum or its affiliates. The content discussed on this podcast are based on personal experiences and should not be construed as factual or legal advice. Neither the host nor the guest are liable for any statements made during the episodes. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research and seek professional advice where appropriate.
And before we dive into today's episode, we want to issue a trigger warning. Some episodes may cover explicit and potentially disturbing subjects such as sexual abuse, rape, human trafficking, suicide, and other sensitive subjects. Listener discretion is advised. Hey, Cultimatum fans, before we dive into today's episode, we have a quick favor to ask.
If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, could you take a moment to rate and review the show?
It really does help more people find Cultimatum and helps bring awareness to cults and human trafficking.
Thanks so much. And now let's jump into today's episode. Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Cultimatum, the culture of cults and human trafficking. And my name is Anonymous Andrew, and with me this evening is my co-host, Melody. Hello, Melody.
Hello, Andrew. Today we have one of our tried and true favorites. We have another XJW. He is known as Polo on TikTok. Polo the Ex JW, I should say. He is a former Jehovah's Witness who has recently started sharing his story online through humor and a lighthearted approach. He breaks down and exposes the inner workings of the organization, making his experience both relatable and eye-opening. He's here with us today to share his journey and shed the light on what life was like inside and outside of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Welcome to the Cultimatum, Polo.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, welcome. And I can't wait to hear your story. So where would you like to start?
Yeah, so my story started probably like a lot of people who are in the cult. I was born into it. My parents were the first Jehovah's Witnesses in the family. Classic story in the sense that Jehovah's Witnesses typically like to go after people who are kind of, I want to say, vulnerable. So, my family are immigrants, immigrated from Honduras, and they got in contact with Jehovah's Witnesses who knocked on their door, and that kind of started it all. From there, they raised us as Jehovah's Witnesses. Funny enough, my mom was the first one to leave it.
I'm going to jump in with a question right away. And this is what I do. So speaking, just be forewarned. You're telling me that JW came knocking on your door to your parents and your parents let them in and then they joined JW?
Yes.
So that tactic actually works.
I know, surprisingly, right? And it's funny.
Okay.
I would say it I was talking about that with actually like a group of XJWs. I'm like, I don't think it works. At least maybe not in today's world.
It didn't work for me because they knocked every Sunday and I chased them away. It's like, you don't need to hear the whole story. But every Sunday I went out of my way. So I always wondered, like, who's going to let these people in and talk them into joining a religion? But I guess it does work because JW is a huge... Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, you know what? I will even... That actually goes in line also with what I mentioned about vulnerable people. So my parents were immigrants. They didn't speak the language. They only spoke Spanish. Didn't have the highest of education. My mom dropped out when she was in high school. I love my parents. I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying this is just the cards that they were dealt in their life. So Jehovah's Witnesses, even when I was Jehovah's Witness, we have territories. And the territory is essentially like a neighborhood that your church was assigned to. And our church had a rich territory, or people who were like somewhat, let's say, middle class. And then we had like the less available, territory. And so you could bet which territory we like to go to most of the time. and which territory we typically would target. And that's also kind of in line with like Jehovah's Witnesses. One of their root teachings in the past, anyway, it has since changed, was they would never encourage higher education. So most Jehovah's Witnesses, for that reason, never got past a high school education, if that. It was quite common growing up for people to, drop out of high school, get their GED, and then start what they would consider the quote unquote full time ministry. I knew several people who did it. I almost did it. I'm actually thankful that my parents did not want me to do that. But anyway, back to, I guess, where I started. So they came in, raised us. I ended up getting baptized at the age of 12, which, in Jehovah's Witnesses organization, getting baptized is a contract. It's a verbal contract. You have to agree to it publicly in front of others that you agree to be a Jehovah's Witness, which I did do. I was 12 years old, and I stayed in it till about the age of 20. After high school, when I graduated, I went to college. I didn't go to university like I wanted to, but even going to like community college down here was seen as taboo and kind of discouraged because it wasn't a lot of, you're doing good, try to shoot for more. It was, okay, don't do too much, always remember the church and always remember what you're supposed to be doing and where you're supposed to be putting your energy. But I started with that, and I did that, and I ended up going to university, FAU. I didn't
Polo, I have
finish
a
it.
quick question. And it's in line with what you're talking about right now, so I don't want you to get too far ahead of me. But am I correct in the fact that I've been seeing recently on social media that JW has officially announced or rescinded that teaching that they don't support higher education? Are they now, haven't they recently just said that, no, you should go to college?
Yeah, they have, and it's so upsetting. I've had friends actually text me who are also Jehovah's Witnesses who were texting me with a very similar sentiment, just like, or almost in tears, or texting me through tears, or they're very upset because we all had this prevailing thought and teaching growing up that don't go to college. The world's going to end very, very soon. So why would you invest in? They always gave the analogy of like a sinking ship. If the world's a sinking ship, why would you try to get, best
Right.
in the sinking ship, right?
And Melody, here we go again. The cults are adapting to the modern culture because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
They have to. We. So you're not the first person bringing this up. Over the past month or two, we've interviewed people that we're finding out that many cults are changing their protocols, policies, rules
Mm.
because of the internet, because of social media, the fact that it's getting out there, and I think people and they're losing cult members because of this, and they need to adapt.
It's because they don't want they
You're
want the
right.
money. They want the ties. So
Yeah,
they are adapting
absolutely.
because they don't want to lose the members because that means
They don't.
money.
That's it. They don't want to lose the members.
Yeah, I mean, if you and first of all, I didn't think about, yeah, there's probably other cults that are doing the same thing, but I had
There
this
are.
conversation. I had this conversation too, and let me just say that makes a podcast like yours even more important because this is how we're able to help people who are leaving it and help people who are either just getting into it and learning about it and avoid the dark side of it because there's a lot of dark side to Jehovah's Witnesses. They're more than just the happy weird people knocking on the door that people kind of know them as. Like there's a whole lifestyle and damaging lifestyle that comes with it. And in the college, yeah, it is. They are going back on it. I had this conversation, and I believe it's because like you said, like they're losing members, and unfortunately now they've created a generation of followers who are not educated, working not the best of jobs, and so they don't have a lot of money, and things are very expensive. So since they know they probably aren't going to grow as quickly as they used to, maybe now it's like, how can we make our current base? How can we get them to make more money without maybe scaring them off too bad. So they've definitely like loosened the reins on college and university and it's so sad because like growing up in high school, I went to a high school that was specifically geared to kind of fast track you to university, to college. And I just didn't take advantage of it because why would I? Like, and they kind of told me like, why would you even go to this high school? Just kind of get by. That was always a prevailing notion. I used to skip school just to go knocking on doors, like that's
Wow.
and it wasn't really like frowned upon in a way. Like they would kind of question it, but they were happy to see me there. Like, great, like you're here, doing what storing up treasures in heaven is what they used to say, storing up treasures in heaven instead of storing up treasures in on earth. So that's
And once again, I'm going to bring it up again that these doomsday cults keep talking about the ends of the world, the end of the world, the end of the world, and they've been talking about it since the 1700s or even before that, and it never happens. The end of the world never happens. Yes, there's wars. Yes, there's calamity all over the world. But the true Armageddon, written somewhere in the Bible, is that like the whole world just going to like disintegrate, and all these souls are going to rise up to heaven. It hasn't happened. So all these cults that keep saying, "Don't go to college, don't do this, don't do that, because you're not going to be around," and then 4 years, 5 years, 10 years later, the world's still here.
yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me that people buy into this. If you keep telling me the world's going to end and in 5 years, and in 5 years it doesn't happen, oh well, we made a mistake. It's 5 more years, and then in 5 more years I stick around and it still didn't end. At some point, I'm going to say, "Hey guys, you're full of shit."
Andrew, did
I
you know
know, and you know what?
there was just one that just happened yesterday?
Yes,
It
the
I
rapture
mean,
was supposed to be here yesterday.
yes, the rapture
Yes,
that was
In
supposed to happen
2025.
yesterday. Yes.
In
it was all over
2025,
social media. Yep.
which is crazy to me, man. And I'm like, man, no wonder our country's where it's at. Like people are still believing like the rapture is gonna happen any day now. And and they work and again, like these like Jehovah's Witnesses, I think that's why I started talking out about it. Because I felt like it wasn't enough for me to leave it. I have to put my story out there. And because it's designed to keep you so busy, you don't even realize the 5 years has passed. You're gonna
Correct.
wake up,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, fingers crossed you wake up if you do, because most of the schedule is, it's still pretty intense because most people still have a job and they have like family that they have to take care of. And then on top of that though, they want you to do a family study night once a week where you sit together. And then on top of that, they want you to preach every Saturday. And then on top of that, they want you to preach on the meeting on Sunday. Like you're putting in another 30 hours on top of your 40-hour job week, 40-hour a
But
week job.
but let me ask you this: if they didn't want you to go get an education, why would you go get a job then?
Valid point, but
You
they
know, like, I mean, I know you got to pay your bills, but if the world's going to end, the bill collector is going to die. It just none
yeah.
of this just makes logical sense. And I know I'm trying to make logical sense out of something that's just completely irrational. And these leaders are all wacky. But okay, I'm sorry. You see what Melody was talking about. I jump in and I
Yeah.
talk about. Okay, go ahead.
I know, because there and I think about it too. There is no logic to it whatsoever. But you know what it comes down to? The followers. If you ask any of the followers, they will. They could guarantee. Like if I gave you this letter, right? If I gave you a letter, you're gonna know it's coming from Polo the Ex JW from me. No question about it. The followers work if the governing body gives them a letter, it's not coming from them. It's literally coming from God, and they cannot see that is not. But they're completely convinced, just as much as you would be convinced by a letter
Brainwashed,
from me.
indoctrinated. Yeah, yeah.
It's so sad. So, I guess that's why I started telling my story. So, after even going through like community college, that kind of was enough to wake me up out of it. There was one of my college professor, his name was Dr. Stav Eli. He was my psychology professor, really smart guy. I always talk about this because he was one of the most eye-opening men I've ever spoken to. The way he spoke about religion and just the way he kind of questioned. And he never did it in a way that's like you're wrong, but he brought so much logic to it that it was enough to kind of wake me up. And, and yeah, so when I left college, I kind of did the pendulum swung in the opposite direction, where I was getting into drugs and partying and that kind of stuff. And throughout that, my wife actually she ended up she was a Jehovah's Witness as well. We left together. We got in trouble together. We left together. We started a family together. Um, and that's a whole interesting dynamic in and of itself. So maybe that would probably be something that's kind of difficult to talk about in a way, because when you leave the church together, you find out over time just how in that same church you left was also keeping you together in a weird way.
Absolutely. I say that on the podcast a lot, Polo, that when you leave, if you're are you and your wife still together?
Yeah, we're together,
Uh,
but
that's really impressive, and it's very difficult because when you're
Very
deconstructing.
rare too. But
Yes.
congratulations, but
Yes, to stay together like that.
impressive.
Yes, it is
yeah,
very impressive and
it is.
unusual.
It's not easy. It's definitely not easy, and we've been through a lot, and so it's actually comforting to hear you guys react the way you did, because I know a lot of people who are in the cult also, number one, that that would say that we weren't going to last, and they would actually end up doing what most cult members and Jehovah's Witnesses do, which is you graduate high school, you get married by 20, 21, and then they always get divorced within the first few years, which is what happens to a lot of our friends. So we're still together and we have a whole family, and I put a lot of effort into my family and my kids and trying to give them a better life. However that looks, I'm still working on that part. But I guess that kind of brings me back to where we are now. I mean, what woke me up was the college, and it never would have happened if I didn't go to. It was kind of why I'm kind of interested to see how this college change plays out, because I think they're going to regret it, if I had to be honest. Once people start going to all these professors, there's no way they're gonna be in it as much as they are. They're gonna have to make significant changes, even more so because of this. We'll see what happens. So I from there I just after so I think I kind of started my story with college, and then I left in my 20s, started my family. Since then I've started a real estate business, and I still do real estate. My family are still very much in it. All of them are still in it. My mom's not in it, and I'm very fortunate that my mom's not in it. But I feel bad for her too, because she was the first one that was in it and the first one gone. They did a good job at painting a picture of her as they demonized her very well. They
Mm,
demonized my mother very, very well, and to the point that we all literally thought she was crazy. But like crazy for not being a Jehovah's Witness and crazy for not being in the cult. Yeah, and that must have been very difficult for her. But now they see me as a crazy one too.
right?
So I kind of understand where she's going from. Yeah, like my sister just had a baby shower, and everybody, I'm one of six, by the way, so I have a big family. So they had a baby shower, and everybody was there except for me, of course. And my brother, he moved away. They had a big going away party. Everybody was there. I wasn't there. So,
What about your
or
mom?
invited. And that's the thing. My mom, they exclude her too, or they'll tell her last minute if,
Hoping
because
she
she
won't
still
be able to
lives
make it.
yeah, I think that must be it. Or like whether she makes it, they don't care, because, it's very sad. But hopefully one
So,
day they
can
make
you
it.
go into more detail into, like, what exactly the professor like, what are some of the things that that professor said to you that kicked in your critical thinking? Can you give us some good examples of what some of those things were?
Well, it's been so long, it's kind of hard to remember all of them. But the first thing that came to mind was, I remember one of the first classes, he goes, if you're somebody who believes in religion, he's like, I can't talk to you that much. And it shocked me just hearing that. I was like, what? Why would you say that? And so we kind of had a conversation about it. And then he just talked about, of course, like we talked about, he told me about a little bit about the history of religions. He suggested I do a deep dive into Jehovah's Witnesses, like really do a deep dive into it. And that definitely triggered it, because when I started doing a dive into Jehovah's Witnesses, as every cult does, they want to control the information. So anything that I saw outside of it, I was being told is wrong. I shouldn't look into it. I shouldn't read it. That's bad. It's going to take you away. And I said, and that was a red flag, because that's nothing he said. He said, the truth does not mind being questioned, or something along that lines.
Absolutely.
It's like it's only a lie that hates being questioned.
Yeah,
And so I felt very like belittled when I would bring some of these things up or try to talk about some of the things I found, whether it's the sexual abuse that's unfortunately very prolific in the organization.
Right.
that gets hidden and
And
suppressed.
you were bringing this to, like, the elders? Is that who you were bringing your questions to?
Well, I was bringing it to my family, and
Okay.
they just wouldn't want me to talk about it. And then when I would bring it up, actually, to I did bring it up to one elder, and the react I didn't do it too much because I knew what the reaction was going to be, and I wasn't disappointed because when I did bring something up to him, it was kind of like, well, you can't trust everything you see, and just make sure you're getting your information from the organization. But I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, you cannot trust that just doesn't make sense. The logic behind it. It's like, yeah, trust me, I'm not lying to you. It's like, what the heck? It's like, if I can't verify what you're telling me, you know, it just doesn't make sense. So once I started doing a lot of that verification, it just opened the floodgates. And so I was spending less and less time going to the church. I wasn't just like a fly by night, I was doing it. I got baptized at 12. So by the time I left, I was what's known as a ministerial servant, at least not entitled. I'll be honest, I was not entitled, but I was doing everything a ministerial servant does. And that's somebody who's like right below like their pastor. So I was like a pastor in training, and I was what's called a regular pioneer. So I was somebody who pretty much dedicates a set amount of hours to just preaching, you know, to just knocking on doors. So I was in it, and but I knew I always kind of did it just because but deep down I knew I always did it just because I knew it was kind of easy to do. I knew what to do. I knew how it would make me look in the church,
Right.
and so I did
So
it.
when you were doing that deconstruction and you were starting to have those doubts, how and when did you bring that to your wife, and what was her response?
So she was always respectful of me, you know. It took her a lot longer to kind of deconstruct herself, and she's kind of still deconstructing in a way. Um, that's another thing. We're on very different paths in that regard, even though it's been so long. It's been like 10 years now. But
That's another reason it's hard to stay together because that deconstruction process is so different for everyone.
it's so different, and
Yeah.
I think it took me like I had a buddy already. He's been on a podcast. He shared his story. I never quite understood why, but now I get it. Now I get it. It's part of your recovery, to get to a point where
Yes.
you're so confident and comfortable in your beliefs that you don't care who knows it.
And it's not just that's a big part of it, but we also have to get the word out there because
Yeah.
these cults, for the
Yes.
last 20 years, they've been growing. But now with the internet and podcast and social media and all the electronics, they're starting to feel the pressure. And the more that we put pressure on them through social media, through podcasting, turn on any one of the television streaming devices, Hulu, HBO, Amazon, they all have documentaries now against cults.
Yeah.
Did you know? I don't know if you watched them or noticed that.
Actually, the last one I saw was a Scientologist one, but I haven't seen any other one. But that was more like,
Melody will give you a list of lots of good ones. There's
I'm
a
excited.
lot of them, and not just one, like all different types of. And I think the Children of God and some of the really horrible ones. So anyway, podcastings are becoming the new media where the word's getting out there, and a lot of people are tuning into podcasting. So because you don't have to sit there and watch television, you can put it on your car, you can put it on while doing dishes or whatever, and you can listen to this and the word's getting out there. So anyway, I didn't want to take up.
I cannot wait to share this all over my social media platforms because you're absolutely right. Like, it's one thing to have a TikTok, but this is great because now I didn't think about that yet because I do that. I haven't listened to podcasts like that anymore, but you could just listen in your car, listen while you work out, while you're going for a run, while you're going for a biking, doing the dishes. And I tell you what, because I have seen a couple documentaries. I cannot tell you how many times when I would watch these documentaries, and I would be like, "That's it. Like that is it. Like that's right." Because
Yeah.
the thing
You
the
can
thing
see all
about
the
these
parallels, and it's mind-blowing.
it's so mind blowing. And to me, it's mind blowing. It's depressing because it's just so much hurt and so
Yes.
much trauma and just so much mind control across millions and maybe even billions of people. It's like it breaks my heart, man. It breaks my heart. It really does. And to know that I still have family who are go ahead.
Yes. No, I was just gonna say, and
Yeah.
it is one of those things when you realize that it's not unique to your group and you realize it's a tactic used by all these cults, you're like it's like this it really opens up a whole new perspective on the way the manipulation works.
Yeah, and they do it in like for example, I had a so my TikTok, which is how we met, I made a video about how Jehovah's Witnesses kick their kids out. It will kick their kids out of their house to protect themselves in the church, or if the child leaves the church, like decides to leave the church. And I made that video because that's just what I saw. I personally didn't experience it, but I knew several people in my church who, that happened to them as soon as they turned 18 or they're barely 18, maybe even 17, 16, bam, they're kicked out the house or they're put into such emotionally distressful conditions that they run away and the parents won't go looking for them. They're like, they did that to themselves. And when I made that, and that's one of those things that any Jehovah's Witness who's listening to this, they're going to say, that's not a rule. And they're right. It's not a rule, but you have these like unspoken rules or these unspoken norms. And this is one of them. And I got to tell you, the amount of comments I got on that post on TikTok from people who experienced the same thing or knew somebody who experienced the same thing was again, like just heartbreaking. Like one lady was saying how her mother kicked her out in the middle of a snowstorm. And how one guy, he was saying how the elders went to his job and they hit the father, and the elders went to his job and they basically kicked him out of the house right then and there, and how he was forced to live on a bench for a whole week, until a friend decided to kick him in. I had a buddy of mine who he had to live in his car for like a whole month because his grandfather kicked him out. And it's like, man, like, and then they wonder why people unalive themselves, they get wrapped up in drugs, and all these things happen, and they'll turn around and then blame them like it's their fault when it's really not. That's one of the things that kind of triggers me, man, because I feel like if I wasn't so mentally strong, if I wasn't so driven, maybe so stubborn, and let me just say this, it must be in my blood because my mom was the same way. Fun fact about I kind of said how we came from Honduras. So, we came from Honduras, but I don't look Honduran. I look African. So my people are called Garifunas. And the Garifuna people and my mom's Garifuna. She speaks the dialect. It's a dialect that they speak in Honduras. It's very similar to Creole. Garifuna is to like us as what Creole is to like a lot of Haitians in the Caribbean, where
Okay.
the African dialect and the Spanish dialect created this new language. But yeah, my people, we were never slaves. We literally were getting shipped to the Caribbean, fought and swam from like the Caribbean islands all the way to Honduras and uh made station or base on the beaches of Honduras, which they still own to this day. My family still owns to this day since like I guess like the 1800s, 1700s, and it's always been that way because they would rather die trying and stay free than become slaves. So I guess that's in our blood. And my mom, after she was in it and got baptized, after like 5 years, she left. And then when I came to it as an adult, I left. Yeah,
Well, I
and
think
now I
it's
just have to
because
tell
your
people.
mom realized she was a slave again. She was like, "Hey,"
Yeah,
or she was a slave. If you guys were never slaves, but she realized this place is enslaving or
yeah.
trying to enslave me.
Yeah, it like triggered something in her, and she's like, and she left, and we weren't kind enough to her, She's still alive, so I try to I can't make up for it, but I really try to be more involved with her because it's just so sad. Her own daughters, the way her own daughters treat her, the way her own sons treat her, her own husband, and that's another thing. Like the organization does not teach you how to be a good husband. It really doesn't. It rewards secret lives. It rewards and the reason why I say it rewards is because there was a time when I was living a quote unquote double life because I would act a certain way in school, act a certain way with my friends, and then act a certain way on the weekends and in the church. But you do that on purpose because if you really were authentically yourself, you'd get kicked out, you'd get reproved, you'd be punished in some way where your community gets affected. And it rewards it. So the way it rewards it, why is by, if you don't tell us, we'll never know, and you get to keep your Jehovah's Witness community, and you get to keep your quote unquote worldly community. I hate using these labels, but it's the only way I can describe it sometimes.
So, Polo, we have about 10 minutes before we have to begin to wrap up.
Hmm.
I want to get to the part where you and your family started to see that you had to get out. You haven't got up to that point in the story yet, correct?
I may have glazed over it. I was going kind of
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. So
Did you
tell
go
us
through a
how you
period of
began
PMO?
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, PMO. You were physically and mentally out. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're familiar with PMO, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So walk us through what started the deconstruction. Who started the critical thinking, and how did you finally get you and your family out?
So, well, I did mention it was like my college professor, and during that time while I was at PMO, because he asked me to research my like research the church, which I did. I started looking into Taze, I think Taze Russell, Charles Taze Russell, I think that's his name, the founder of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
That may be incorrect, so, but I looked into his. I was looking into him, and then I found out a book that was written by one of the governing body members, which I was so excited to even know existed, because a governing body member is basically like they're the head honchos in the religion. It does not get higher than them. And when I found out that there was a book written by one who left,
Charles Russell.
Charles Russell, yeah. When I found out there was a book, the book was written by Raymond Franz. So Russell's already dead, but Raymond Franz was a governing body member. But when I found out about this book, I had to get my hands on it. And I was so excited that when I finally got it, I tried to share it actually to my siblings, but they were appalled, almost disgusted when they saw the book, because they're like, "Why do you have that?" I said, "Guys, look, this book was written by a past governing body member, a verifiable past governing body member. There's literally I said, there's like 10 people in the entire world who could write a book like this. And 9 of them are still governing body members, or they were at the time. He's the only one then out of all of them who defected and wrote a book about it." I'm like, this is powerful. And so I read it, and I wanted them to read it, and they didn't want to read it. But whatever. I kept it. I used to strategically keep it out in the open, so that way they could. I was hoping that they would like pick it up and flip through it, and you never know.
Right.
So that was part of my PMO. That was part of my PMO time though, because the elders didn't know I was reading it. During that time, I would sneak off with my now wife, and or we would hang out with some friend. We'd all go drinking, and I'd get tattoos, and all these things would happen. But then finally one day, I remember but I would still go to meetings at that time. And I was working a job at a restaurant one day, and I was rushing to get to the meeting because I wanted to keep up this appearance that I was still active. And I'm rushing, and literally like it was like lightning struck, because I had this thought that's like, why are you even rushing if you don't care to go? Like, and if you don't care to go, what's going to happen if you don't go? And I remember I could tell you exactly what I was doing. I was literally like I was rushing, wiping down one of the stainless steel tables. And when that thought hit me, I stopped, and I was like, literally, and I told myself nothing's going to happen if I don't go. Like, cause I guess I was busting my ass, man. I must look like a crazy person in that restaurant, the way I was running around trying to wrap up my station just to get to this church on a Friday night. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go. I'm going to take my time. And when I get out of here, I get out of here. And man, I can tell you what, even just saying it now, I can still feel that calmness, because and from there, I wasn't going to do it anymore. I told
It
her I wasn't
gave
going
you
to do it
that
anymore.
sense of freedom. It was almost like
Yeah.
something just clicked, and
Yeah.
you that part of you weren't brainwashed anymore. That critical thinking was complete. And you were like, "Yeah, I don't have to go."
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like all the puzzles just made sense in that moment, where it's like I don't have to go, nothing's gonna happen. I'll still have the people that aren't Jehovah's Witnesses. Like I'll still have I can still be a human. I don't have to go, and so I stopped going. Now that did lead to another series of events where I ended up getting the label they have, which is disfellowshipped, because I just said I wasn't going to do it anymore. I don't care. She was disappointed in that, obviously, because she didn't want that to happen. But she got
And by she,
disfellowshipped
you
too.
mean your wife?
Yeah, my wife. Yeah, and when she got disfellowshipped, she was she was very disappointed in it. But that's the thing. It's like, when you're leaving Jehovah's Witnesses after so many years, and she was born in it too. We were very similar in the sense we were both born in it, both regular pioneers, both reaching out. Sometimes your subconscious mind is like taking the wheel, and that's what the PMO is, I guess, the physically and mentally out. And you just start to not do it, no matter how much you kind of consciously want to. It just doesn't fit in with your life anymore. And that's what happened. And we both left. And from there, I guess in some ways the rest is history, but we're still making history because we have three small children.
Wow.
One, the oldest is, yeah, the oldest is 8. The youngest is a year and a half. I work from home, which I'm thankful for, but having a business and having small kids is very tough.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. More Cultimatum is coming up.
I try to be
Yeah.
involved with them as much as possible. Yeah, I'm involved with them as much as I possibly can to give them a life that I did not have. No, obviously growing up Jehovah's Witnesses, there's no birthdays, no holidays. There's really no momentous occasion because we were
Right.
taught not to have a momentous occasion. And so I
So,
still got to work through. But
I was just going to ask, do you celebrate Christmas and birthdays now?
now we do. I still
Okay.
struggle sometimes in finding the joy in doing it because I never had it as a kid.
Yeah.
But it does make me feel very good to buy them a gift, to see their faces light up, to wake up on
That's where
Christmas
I
to believe.
started too. But I will tell you, Polo, in my cult, we didn't do Christmas. My cult was the House of Yahweh, by the way, and a lot of parallel teachings to Jehovah's Witnesses, but we didn't do Christmas either. And it took me 17 years before I felt comfortable enough to put a Christmas tree in my house.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. It took me. I still don't really decorate, but I'm gonna start. I really want to start doing it, and I really want to start, even for Halloween coming up. I love horror movies. I always loved horror movies. My wife hates them, but I love them. So it's like
Well,
I couldn't really.
I'll give you advice. Start small. Like, even with a small tree. I started with a tree that was only like 12 inches tall, and I just put it on my table. I'm like, that's my tree this year. So when you start small, then you can work your way up to a little bit bigger the next year. And yeah, start small. Like, buy a small pumpkin or whatever it is you want for Halloween.
You know what? Today we were at the store. We bought 2 small pumpkins for the kids, and they love it.
Nice.
And you know what we did? And I'm not gonna, and I don't want to, misrepresent some things in case she does hear it. Like she's been really good with taking the lead on that side because if it was up to me, we would literally have nothing. She likes to go kind of all out as much as we can. She'll be the one, and I'll just come home, and all of a sudden she bought a 10-foot tree. I'm like, what the heck?
But you know what's great, Polo? And other than you had mentioned earlier where you lived before we started recording, I'm not going to repeat it now, but you will blend into the neighborhood because all the other kids, families are going to have pumpkins on their stoops or Christmas trees or Christmas lights in their windows. I'm just speaking from when I grew up. If I saw something, one day when I saw menorahs in other windows, I asked my parents, why don't we have menorahs? But because he says, because we have Christmas trees and Christmas lights. And I was like, well, but why can't we have menorahs? They look nicer. Whatever. The point is that children will
You
notice.
notice? Yeah.
Yeah, they will notice. And the whole, if you don't want to go into the whole paganism thing behind the Christmas and the Halloween and all, and it's all up to them. It's all about running around in costumes and collecting candy, and that's all it has to be for them.
Yeah, and that's all it is. And it's funny you say that because that's another thing. That's a word that's been demonized so much by Jehovah's Witnesses is pagan. When pagan was just a religion, just like
Right.
how we're a religion.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
I'm like I don't like what the heck? Who cared? Even if it was like
And why is it, we don't have to get off on this topic because we could probably do a whole episode on it, but why is it pagan? Halloween is All Hallows Eve. It's the day before All Saints Day. So it's technically, unless somebody's going to correct me, it is a religious holiday, or it's like Christmas Eve. It's like it's All Hallows Eve. It's when I know it's all the souls come out to play, and so we don't have to get into that. Maybe we could do something for Halloween on that melody.
If you want, I would love to come back for it. Because I will say
Sure.
this, even in line with that, and now that I'm getting older, I'm sure you see it already. But like that phrase, "There's nothing new under the sun," I see it. Like I'm starting to see it play out so many times. Where, in a lot of ways, these religions that we have today, they're just renamed pagan
Yep.
religions, pagan holidays, renamed, festivals that were observed by other religions. They're not original, even a little
No.
bit, but they make you think they are.
Oh, yeah.
It's just grabbed from the Bible, or they repurpose. And if you really, really want to get into it, we really shouldn't. I shouldn't even bring it up because we'll never get
I'm so,
done.
I'm
But
so curious what you're gonna say.
the whole the Bible and all the religions, you know what? I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. We do have to. We're at that mark, though. Unless is anything you want to add to your story quickly before we get to the final questions?
But no, I think the final questions are gonna wrap it up, and I'm just excited to hear them.
Okay, you left. You were P mode, and then you PO mode. I guess you physically got out and mentally got out.
Mhm.
And I'm hearing that Christmas trees and Halloween are making their way into your family, and it seems like you're assimilating into the culture, the American culture. Where, and you can answer for yourself. You don't have to answer for your wife or your family. Where are you in your faith? Do you have a God? Do you have a religion? Are you atheist, agnostic? And I'm just throwing words out there. I'm not putting words in your mouth. So, in your own words, where are you in your faith today?
So I put some thought to that question before, and I realized that I went through. I feel like that's another thing I found is like this a very similar path in the sense that when I first left, I would say I went atheist, where I believed in no God. And then I went agnostic, where I believed there was some God. I briefly went to Christian, but then I reached a point where I realized that now I would say I'm at a point where there is no truth, quote unquote. I was raised to believe that there is a single truth and that was it and it's done. But now I'm seeing that there is no truth. And if there is one truth, that there is none. And in a way, and some people, and I get asked that a lot, even from other ex Jehovah's Witnesses, because they have this prevailing thought that if I don't do this, what am I going to replace it with? Like I have to do something. But in my opinion, that's kind of the beauty of where I'm at. I don't have to do anything. I'm not, and that leaves me more open than anything else.
I like
So
that answer. You
and so
don't
Yeah.
have to do anything. You
you
don't.
don't have to. I hear stuff, I like stuff, I'll investigate it, I'll even visit the church, I'll read up on it, but I have no reason to be married to anything. And I always say how I think about it, it, and people who do know about Jesus, if they really want to get to the bare bones of it, that's how Jesus was. He did not tell you to come down. He did not come down here and say, "Hey guys, I'm a Christian," because he's Jesus. He just said, "Be a good person, treat people nice, help those less fortunate."
And
Yep.
that's what that
Pretty simple
confused the
message.
hell out of me. When I was growing up in the Catholic Church, I was told Jesus was Christian. And then I found out later that no, Jesus was a Jew. He's Jesus of
Yeah.
Nazareth. He was Jewish. And
Yep.
it just confused me more. I also was told growing up that if you did A, B, C, and D, that these things horrible things would hurt, I'm gonna say it, we're all gonna laugh, that if I masturbated, I would grow hair on my palms. All right.
Yeah.
It never happened. So, all of this crap that we're taught in the religious cults or religious organizations are there just to scare the hell out of us.
Yeah.
Yet, show me one cult, one organization, one religion where any of their preachings or teachings ever really came true.
That's
going all
true.
the way back to that woman who saw that stupid rock back in 1700.
He's
You know what
talking
I'm
about
saying,
Ellen
Melody?
White with the Seventh Day
Ellen
Adventists.
White, thank you. It's okay. All right, Melody, because I'm going to go off on a rant now.
I
You
like your rant. Very entertaining.
I have a whole podcast about rants.
Oh, it's
Melody,
part of the show.
ask Paulo your final question.
Okay,
I
my
can't believe
final
this.
question, Polo, is that if there is somebody that is in the Jehovah's Witnesses that is maybe sneaking listening to our podcast and starting to get into that POMO stage where they're starting to doubt what they believe, or somebody that might be thinking about joining a religion, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses or another group that they're questioning, what would be your words of advice to them?
So for anyone who is POMO, or PIMO right now,
PIMO. Oh,
I
yes.
always,
Thank you.
yeah, it's like you have two options, and because at the end of the day, this is your life, but you have two options. Option number one, because when you're POMO, here's the thing about this door. Once this door is open, there's no closing it. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you say. There is no closing it. Once you start seeing the contradictions and the lies and the history, you can't undo it. So you have two options. You could either continually act like you don't know those things and continually lie to yourself and make yourself miserable on behalf of your mother, your father, your family, your friends, the elders. And you could continue to do that. And you could probably do that pretty good for the rest of your life if you really want to. And nobody will know, nobody will be any other wiser. You could sneak off every other weekend or every other evening, or you could do that. There's no law against that, really. Jehovah, whatever you want to call it, he's not going to do anything about it. It's funny you mentioned about he's not like like it's funny. I just want to say this one last thing because it makes me laugh. I remember before I got baptized though, I kind of tested that theory, and I was like 11 years old and I masturbated in the church. And I wanted to see, cause I'm like, is God gonna do anything? And nothing happened. And I was like,
Thank
okay,
you. Thank you.
that
Because I
that
broke
right that
I broke so many rules in the Catholic Church. I was an altar boy and a choir boy, and even though none of the priests picked on me, I don't know why. I wasn't good looking. I broke so many religious Roman Catholic sins, and nothing happened to me. Well, I got to be careful with that.
yeah,
I,
right.
I did have a rough adulthood, but I didn't go to hell. I didn't burn in hell, and I didn't, half the other stuff
You
that they
weren't
told
struck
me
by
what would
lightning.
happen. So I didn't get
Yeah, it's
struck
like
by lightning. Right? I didn't get cancer. Knock on wood. So far,
yeah,
I could spin it and tell you other things happened to me, but they were just things that life happened to many people. So
exactly.
yeah,
But that's the line. Tomorrow will come, so you could live
yes,
that life,
Yes.
or you could choose to not do that and just be authentically yourself and learn to love yourself and learn to love and just love yourself, like at that level where you could accept if somebody wants to be in my life, they'll be in my life. If somebody wants to leave my life, they'll leave my life, because that's the only truth is we can't control anybody else. I can't
Yep.
get in their head. I can't convince somebody. I've had people on my live try to convince them that Jehovah's Witness is a lie, and I tell them, look, I can't do that because you're going to believe what you want to believe. And that's the thing. I'm like, but the cost, and some people will choose that first option where they continually lie to themselves, thinking they can. But I always say there's a cost with everything. That's one of the laws of the universe. For every action, there's a reaction. And what you're paying for when you choose option A is you're paying for it with your mental health. You're paying for it probably financially. You're paying for it, mentally is a big one. Like you're paying for it in so many ways. I don't know if that's a bill you want to pay. I
Yeah.
couldn't afford it anymore. So I stopped doing
Your
it.
time,
And yeah, your time. Oh my God, it's a huge one.
especially in Jehovah's Witnesses, they expect a lot of your time.
A
yeah.
lot of your time. And I'm lucky in the sense that I got out in my early 20s, which to me felt old, but in the grand scheme of things, that's still young. I know people who are getting out in their 50s, 60s.
But Paulo, We've had
Yeah.
people on the show that were in there for 60. We had one of our, in the early days of our podcast, we had a gentleman on that was there in there for 67 something years, and he was an elder, like one of the
Oof.
top elders. So
I can imagine how he must feel,
yeah,
because
Yes.
life is just so different. You're not physically, you mentally, you're just as good, but your body just can't keep up with your mind at that
but
point.
just think about he lost 60 years of his life to an organization now he no longer believes in. It's just
Yes.
it's amazing. So
That's episode
what he
number
had to
3.
go
You'd
through it.
probably be interested in his episode, Polo.
yeah, check it out. Episode number
I'll
3.
listen to it. I'll listen to it
Yes.
because I
Okay.
say it all the time, and like, I have nothing to show for it, after all that time.
Yeah. But you have a whole life ahead of you to make up for
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
Polo, we have to wrap it up. Tell us where we can find you on social media, where we can follow you and your stories.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to do it right now, I'm just on TikTok. So my TikTok name is a name that I'm using here. It's Polo The Ex JW. I mean, I would love it if anybody who hears this video could, send me a DM on there. Just say, hey, I heard, your podcast. Let's connect. I would absolutely love that.
Awesome.
All right. We'll put that in the show notes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, Polo, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having
Yes.
me.
Thank you
I'm
very
truly
much.
honored.
I loved your whole story from coming to Honduras, and you taught me something because I didn't know that the whole story you told about your family
Getting from
coming over from there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's
So
part of it.
thank-
They killed my culture. I didn't have to learn it. I had to learn this stuff as I left it because we weren't allowed to really learn it. Because
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, good
That's
for
a
you.
shame.
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right, Polo. Thank you. Thank you so
thank
much.
you guys.
All righty. Bye-bye.
And once again, we want to thank Polo so much for coming on the show and sharing his experience and his story with us. Such an interesting, different, unique story. Just
Yep.
like we talked about before, Andrew, you can have, you could have 100 people on from the same cult. Everybody's going to have a different story.
And I learned so many new things about not just JW, but just his history. The whole concept that his family came from Honduras. They weren't Latin. They were Creole, and they came to America, and then they had a JW recruitment. I forget what they call those people that walk around, knock on doors. They actually recruited them as JW, and I just found that I was like, really, that really works. And yeah, it was just.
I think they call them pioneers, but I'm not 100%
Is that what they
sure
call
on
them?
that. I think so,
didn't
but
know.
I'm not 100% sure on that because I don't know all my JW terms. So,
Yeah, no.
and
Yeah.
for the audience, anybody else, when he was talking about all the people that get kicked out of their parents' house and all the people that get shunned if they leave and the way they're treated bad, all I could think of was our episode number 65 where remember Tim who was shunned at 10?
Yes.
I
The
didn't
one
get
that
a
had to
chance
walk
to
away
say that.
from the house.
Yes, and he ended up leaving. I
Oh,
think he
yeah.
didn't leave until he was 16, but his last 6 years that he was there, he was disfellowshipped as a child.
Yeah.
And it was just such a tragic story. So, and I was thinking about that and I didn't get the chance to throw that in there, but for anybody who's interested in his story, that is episode number 65. So anyways, I don't have much more to say about it, but we want to thank him. That was a
Yeah.
very good episode. So thank you again to Polo for coming on the show. And as always, thank you to all of you for tuning into Cultimatum. We truly do appreciate your support and our mission to expose the truth and highlight the voices of these survivors.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. And don't forget to follow us, share, and keep listening to all of our latest episodes.
And you can also follow Cultimatum on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube for more content and updates.
Don't forget to join our Facebook group, Cultimatum Podcast, where we dive deeper into these important topics.
And if you are a cult survivor and you're looking for additional support, we do recommend joining the Cult Escape and Healing group on Facebook.
If you're interested in more of my work, head over to the Anonymous Andrew Podcast Studios.com, and there you will get all of the other podcasts that are produced under this name, including the Digital Dating Weekend Rant and, of course, Cultimatum.
And if you have a story related to cults or human trafficking that you would like to share with us, please email us at cultimatumpodcast@gmail.com.
If you'd like to help support the show and help us with production costs. In the show notes, there is a link called Buy Us a Cup of Coffee or two, because there's two of us, so we each need a cup of coffee. That helps us with production costs so we can continue to bring you new episodes each week.
Yes, absolutely. And as always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone.